Tonight on Reporting Scotland, Scottish police are heading to Northern Ireland to provide backup. It comes after a disorder like this in Belfast, while the First Minister says authorities are prepared for anything here this weekend. Also in tonight's programme, could the bin strikes be off next week? Councils have made an improved pay offer to workers. And issues for the ferry network as the first of 4 new CalMac vessels being built in Turkey is delayed. Hello, I'm Sally Magnuson. Welcome to Friday's programme. Police Scotland is to send around 120 officers to Northern Ireland to help with policing any threats of violence there. The First Minister says so-called mutual aid in policing is essential. Meanwhile, Muslim and Christian leaders have come together at Glasgow Central Mosque in a show of solidarity in the wake of disorder in other parts of the UK. Gillian Sharp reports.
Scenes like these recent ones in Belfast have led to police in Northern Ireland asking for support from Scotland. Officers are expected there over the next week.
The initial deployment will give us 4 extra units, which is in the region of 120 additional officers deployed onto our streets. The purpose of that additionality is to make sure that we have the resilience. My officers at the moment are working very, very long hours.
A decision like this, says the First Minister, is always a careful one for the police.
And the Chief Constable was clear with me and with other political leaders on Wednesday that she would only agree to a request for mutual aid if she was confident that she could assure people in Scotland of the safety of our communities. And I know that judgment will be applied very carefully by the Chief Constable in the days that lie ahead.
Other parts of the UK have been gripped by disorder in recent days. But on a visit to the Edinburgh Ukrainian Club today, the Scottish Secretary said action against those found guilty of offences in England was having an effect.
I hope the public will have seen that the authorities, whether it be the police, the courts, the justice system in England, have come down very hard on those perpetrators. We will be doing the same in Scotland, no doubt, if that was the case, that there was any incidents here. But it looks as though things have started to calm down a bit.
Friday prayers at Glasgow Central Mosque, coming together at the end of a difficult week, watching events further south.
Members of our community are, how can you say, not worried but alerted about what's going on, situation like that. But we just hope that it doesn't go to the extent that's happening in England.
I'm scared to be in the country, I'm scared to live in the country. I just want to get out, to be honest.
I think it's more about showing solidarity within the community. You know, I think Scotland we're quite different, I would say, from that aspect. I think we're all together as one, whether you have faith or not.
It's a time for many to reflect on recent events.
The best thing is really just local communities continuing to be together and reassuring and checking in on your friends and neighbours. But we're hopeful that there's a strong message from Scotland, which is, don't bother, you're not welcome here.
This morning, Muslim and Christian faith leaders toured the mosque together, a message of solidarity. Gillian Sharp, Reporting Scotland.
There are anti-racism demonstrations going on in 2 towns here this evening. Our correspondent David Wallace-Lockhart is in Paisley. David, what's happening there?
So Sally, there have been reports of a potential anti-asylum seeker demonstration in Paisley tonight. So in response, the group Stand Up to Racism have organised this rally tonight in Paisley. There's about 150 people here. You can see some people getting quite excited about the demonstration tonight, but about 150 people here, speakers mainly from the trade union movement. Some chants of refugees are welcome here. It's been a peaceful event. A few heckles from some people coming past, but also a lot of supportive peeping from motorists as well. So plenty of folk here tonight, despite the weather. An event in Bathgate as well taking place. I think it's about to break up. I imagine a lot of the people here tonight will also be taking part in Stand Up to Racism events taking place over the weekend. But tonight seems to be kicking off in Paisley and Bathgate with anti-racism rallies in those 2 towns.
David, thank you very much for that. Hope Webb is in the centre of Glasgow for us this evening. There's an anti-racism rally expected there tomorrow, Hope.
Yeah, there's a number of events planned across Scotland over the course of the weekend. Speaking about Glasgow specifically, Stand Up to Racism, the group has organised a national day of protest called Stop the Far Right, and that will take place here in George Square starting at around about 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. A number of similar protests are also organised in Dundee and in Edinburgh as well. People are expected to gather outside the Scottish Parliament building in Holyrood tomorrow morning for an anti-racism demonstration there as well. Officers specifically in Glasgow will be dealing with a large presence throughout the city during the day as well. A number of loyalist processions and a Republican march are also planned for this weekend. On top of that, officers will be carrying out their usual duties of policing football matches, with fans gathering at Hampden as well tomorrow. And this all comes, of course, after Police Scotland dismissed online speculation of far-right protests in Glasgow's George Square earlier this week. The force has said it continues to closely monitor the situation and any disorder will be identified quickly and responded to immediately.
What's being said, Hope, about all these events happening on the same day?
Yeah, so we've heard from the First Minister John Swinney today ahead of these events at the weekend. John Swinney said Police Scotland had been carrying out regular surveillance of intelligence to keep on top of any potential threats that might come up. And this, of course, comes as the Police Service of Northern Ireland confirmed today that around 120 Police Scotland officers will be heading over to Northern Ireland early next week to help them deal with violent protests that they've seen on the streets of Belfast. But Swinney has been reassured by the Chief Constable of Police Scotland that there is enough officers here in Scotland to safely secure Scottish communities over the course of the weekend. And in reference to this weekend specifically, Mr Swinney said he recognises there is significant fear and anxiety in communities across the country, but he said he's very confident that Police Scotland has enough resources to keep everybody safe.
Hope Webb in Glasgow, thank you very much indeed. Council unions are to discuss whether to call off next week's bin strikes. It follows a new pay offer for staff. Let's speak to our news correspondent Jamie McIver. What's the new pay offer like, Jamie?
Well, it's a significant improvement, Sally, and of course it's for all council workers other than teachers. Now, the new pay offer is 3.6%. That compares to the 3.2% which was an offer before, and there'd be a larger rise for the very lowest paid. They'd get a rise of £1,292 a year, and that's roughly equivalent to 5.6%. Now, this offer came about after the Scottish Government made extra money available to councils to help. Council leaders got together this morning to discuss the situation, and this afternoon there were negotiations between the council body COSLA and the three big council unions. Now, as things stand, bin workers and their immediate colleagues in most council areas are due to start a 9-day strike on Wednesday. The council body COSLA thinks the new pay offer is basically as good as it's going to get. Let's hear from one of the big council unions, Unison.
We'll be looking at the employer's revised offer. Obviously, new money is involved here, so it is going to be kind of more positive for us to consider. That will be considered on Monday morning, and at that point in time, we will take a decision whether to suspend any industrial action and go to consult our members on the offer.
Not very much being given away there. Is this pay offer going to be enough, do you reckon?
It's safe to say that the officials in the big unions are going to be combing over the details over the weekend before they get together on Monday morning to decide on their formal responses, and they'll certainly be giving some serious consideration to suspending the threat of the bin strike. They'll also look at whether to ballot their members on whether or not to accept this offer. It may not be enough to resolve the dispute, Sally, but COSLA and the Scottish Government will certainly be very disappointed if, at the very least, the bin strikes are not suspended.
Jamie, thank you very much indeed. Some of the day's other stories now. A man who murdered his friend just over a week after being freed on bail has been jailed for at least 17 years. Christopher Howe punched and kicked Paul Berry to death, then sent his own father photos of the victim. He was convicted of the fatal attack on the 46-year-old last month. ScotRail is warning passengers to expect long queues for trains this weekend. The rail operator is putting on extra carriages in Glasgow to accommodate football at Hampden, as well as on late-night services leaving Edinburgh during a weekend of festivals. A temporary timetable is currently in place because of an ongoing dispute over pay. ScotRail is urging people to plan their journeys.
So the final weekend before the school holidays finish is traditionally the busiest weekend at the Edinburgh Festivals for ScotRail. We also have the football at Hampden and demonstrations across the country are expected. So our advice to passengers is check before you travel. We do have extra seats and extra services into Edinburgh and to Hampden, but check before you leave the house. Look at the ScotRail app or look at the website.
The first of 4 new CalMac ferries being built by a shipyard in Turkey will be delivered late. The MV Isle of Isla, which was launched in March, was meant to be handed over in the middle of October, but this has now been put back to near the end of the year. The CalMac ferry network is facing pressure because of an ageing fleet and a lack of spare vessels. Here's our transport correspondent, David Henderson.
Built in Turkey, destined for Scotland's west coast, the MV Isle of Isla was meant to leave this shipyard in October, but now there's been a delay and it won't join the CalMac fleet until the end of the year. On Isla, there's concern at this delay. At Kilchoman Whisky Distillery, they rely on the ferry link to the mainland and we're hoping to see a new ferry in place sooner rather than later. Likewise, so many others on this island.
As a lifeline service, we've been let down very badly, and probably more so for the hospitality industry. I think certainly this summer we haven't seen so many visitors coming to the island because of the uncertainty of getting a booking and being able to get off the island. So that's had a big impact on the hospitality industry here.
It's proving a tough week for CalMac. On Tuesday, a small fire on board this vessel, Lord of the Isles, forced sailings to be cancelled. The ferry's now limped down to Greenock for repair. It's a reminder of how the ageing CalMac fleet is showing signs of wear and tear, with wind, weather and old age all taking their toll. And that in turn does little to reassure those island communities which the ferries serve. Lord of the Isles normally serves South Uist, so that route's now under pressure, while the main Arran ferry, Caledonian Isles, has been out of service since February, under repair. And Hebridean Isles, which serves Isla, is bound for the scrapyard in November at the grand old age of 39. New vessels are due to join the CalMac fleet, but when will this one, the MV Glensannox? It's meant to be this autumn, but after many years of delay, some wonder if that schedule will hold.
I'm very concerned that we will see fresh problems in the next year or 2 or 3 until we get new vessels into action. Once those start to come through, things should improve, but they're not there now. And it just comes to back to bad planning over the years that we haven't got this steady stream of new ferries.
CalMac call today's news a slight delay and say they're ready to take on this new ferry as soon as it's ready. They and islanders alike will be hoping this vessel's sailing soon. David Henderson reporting Scotland.
Researchers looking into so-called dark tourism are analysing visitors' reactions to the goriest parts of Peterhead Prison Museum by filming people as they explore the museum's exhibits. The data is then analysed by researchers at Robert Gordon University. It's hoped the study will provide a better understanding of how people react to the more troubling aspects of human history, as Rachel Bell reports.
Peterhead Prison, once known as Scotland's toughest jail, a Victorian fortress with a turbulent past. Famously the scene of a dangerous riot where Jackie Stewart, a prison officer, was taken hostage and cruelly paraded on the roof.
The prison closed its doors more than 10 years ago and then reopened as a museum. And as you can see, it's remained largely unchanged, giving visitors a real taste of what prison life was really like, including some of the darker sides.
This researcher wants to explore that a bit further, placing cameras in some of the more violent displays.
Somebody's about that.
One of the exhibits we're looking at has a murder setup within it. One of the other areas is the cat and nine tails, which is a corporate punishment that was used within the museum. So we're interested in how people interact in those spaces and how they come to understand the difficult heritage that's being presented. So there's been a few times in the footage where we've seen people making sort of jokes, like we should have one of those at home with the cat and nine tails, and that's a kind of interesting interaction when we're thinking about dark tourism and whether it's a form of entertainment or perhaps a form of education.
All the data will be analysed over the next few months, and the findings will be made available to museums, like the one in Peterhead.
When the research study was suggested, for me it was a gift to get the academic side for us. We do the day-to-day stuff. We get quite accustomed to the daily opening up, people coming through. This will be really good for us at the end of the research to look at, have we got it right? Could we push the boundaries a bit more?
Peterhead Prison's brutal past continues to shock and fascinate visitors. It's hoped this study will help us understand why. Rachel Bell, reporting Scotland, Peterhead.
Amy's here with the sport, and a bit of a shock for Scotland fans tonight.
Yes, absolutely. News that we didn't see coming. Certainly, Sally, thanks very much. Good evening. We are starting with that news that may have come as a surprise for many Scotland fans, with midfielder Callum McGregor retiring from international football at the age of 31. Well, it's been a remarkable international career for the midfielder. Here he is making his senior debut against the Netherlands in a friendly back in 2017. He's not changed much, has he? But his international career across the youth levels has actually spanned 16 years in total. He earned 63 caps at senior level, which secured his place on the Roll of Honour, and of the 3 goals he scored for his country, there we go, that strike against Croatia at Hampden meant he was the first man to score for Scotland at a major tournament in 23 years. 2 men who know McGregor well reacted to today's news.
I'm sure he's just probably thought about how he's going to look after his body now and hopefully give everything he's got to Celtic for as long as he possibly can. And it's similar to what I done back in the day as well. Yeah, I did jump back out for a few games and come back, but I knew it was time for me to retire from international duty, as well as I knew it was time for me to retire from football.
It's obviously a day that is disappointing, I suppose, for Scotland fans. But a day I'm pretty sure, knowing Callum, that he's thought of long and hard with his family and his close advisors. When we gave him his debut against Holland up in Aberdeen, you know, he'd done very well for Celtic in that year, and at the time it was one of those players where you think, yeah, he's absolutely someone that can handle international football. He's got a lot of highlights to look at in that international career, but a fabulous professional and a terrific ambassador for our country over the period.
St Mirren manager Stephen Robinson says belief has been the key so far to his side's impressive start to the season after their late draw against Brann last night. Teloso Oluwasena's last-minute equaliser maintained the Buddies' unbeaten start to the season, and Robinson is hoping it can give them momentum ahead of their trip to Aberdeen on Sunday.
That's what the storyline is, you know, those boys making their way in their career, just starting out in their career, rediscovering their career when they've lost their way. And St Mirren's giving those boys a platform, so it's a learning curve for everybody every day, including myself. And as I say, we believe in what we do as a coaching staff. We believe we make players better, and from this experience, this European experience, no matter how long it lasts, we will be better for it, even managing the league games after. It's certainly something we're all learning from.
Rangers manager Philippe Clement says playing the side's home games at Hampden while Ibrox is being renovated was the best option available as the side prepare to welcome Motherwell to the National Stadium tomorrow. Rangers go into this following 2 draws in the last week, Hearts in their league opener before a 1-1 draw in the first leg of their Champions League qualifier away to Dinamo Kyiv. Clement, who wouldn't confirm rumours surrounding Yanis Hadji and Todd Cantwell's possible departures, said his team are ready and will adapt to playing away from home.
It was for me the best scenario, and not only for the players, for sure also for the fans, because we need to think about that, and that was for me also a priority, that they could feel in a way at home, not traveling much more than it is now. It would have been different if it was at Murrayfield, or it would have been in like a big stadium in England, for example. Were also other possibilities, but so I'm really happy that the club could find a solution.
Turning our attention to Celtic now, and it could be a busy end to the transfer window for the club, particularly when it comes to Adam Idah and Matt O'Reilly. Manager Brendan Rodgers believes the club can seal a deal to bring Idah back to the Scottish champions after making a fresh bid for the Norwich City striker, while one former Celtic star thinks it's unlikely the club will be able to hold on to O'Reilly.
If they can keep a hold of Matt O'Reilly some way, I'm sure everybody at the club would love to do that, but money talks, and if the right offer's made, which I'd imagine it will be, then he would need to go, and it's a success for everybody what Matt O'Reilly's done for the club in the Champions League level and at domestic level. He'll probably be looking to go if the offer's right, and the club will probably be looking to sell. So to answer your question, the club would love to keep him, but if the money's right, then I think that it's looking like it'll probably go.
And now it's over to Laura to find out what's happening a little bit before that on BBC Scotland at 7.
Hello, coming up tonight, pictures of those riots in England and Northern Ireland have dominated the headlines for more than a week now. And with police across the country on high alert this weekend, we report on those jailed for their social media posts during the unrest. Also tonight, the BBC asks the former news presenter Hugh Edwards to hand back the salary he was paid after being arrested on child abuse image charges. Plus, with the Olympics drawing to a close, we hear from the unsung heroes working behind the scenes to keep the show on the road. Switch over at 7.
In the meantime, let's find out what's going on with the weather. Here's Gillian.
Hi, Sally. It's been so windy today, but settling down over the weekend, especially on Sunday. Good evening to you. There's been some sunshine around today, along with a fair few showers, some heavy ones at that. And they've all been driven in on really gusty westerly winds, unseasonably windy today. And tonight we hang on to that showery westerly airflow. The showers will be most frequent over Argyll and the northwest Highlands. A few elsewhere, but generally long clear spells coming through for southern, central and eastern Scotland. But we retain those very gusty winds. You can see still gusts in excess of 40 miles an hour in places. So tomorrow, a blustery start to the day, a bright one for many. We'll start with those showers in the northwest and then they push away eastwards. And as the day goes on, it's a mix of sunny spells and scattered showers. But the showers shouldn't be as frequent or as heavy as today's, and at some parts faring pretty well. This is the picture around about 3 o'clock. And for southern Scotland, the central belt, many eastern parts, relatively few showers. Some good sunny spells, lifting temperatures to 18 or 19 Celsius. Still a noticeable breeze, but certainly not as strong as today, and the main focus of those showers over northern Argyll, the northwest Highlands, into Moray, a few for the Northern Isles as well, some on the heavy side, and a cooler feel in these parts, 14 or 15 Celsius. Across the hills tomorrow, it will be sunshine and scattered showers, the showers heaviest during the morning over the Perthshire and Angus hills, and accompanied by especially strong winds. Generally, the winds will be a hazard with gales across the tops, risk of buffeting, significant wind chill, the best of the conditions across southern ranges during the afternoon. So some of those showers continue into tomorrow evening. Good sunny spells for southern, central and eastern Scotland. And as the night goes on, we'll start to see those showers across the north fading, the winds beginning to ease down. And that's because for the second half of the weekend, we have an area of high pressure moving in. So Sunday looking like the better of the 2 weekend days. We'll start still with some showers for the North Highlands and the Northern Isles, but they will tend to fade, and the emphasis on plenty of dry and bright weather with some good spells of sunshine. The winds on Sunday will be much lighter, so you will feel the benefit of that sun, lifting temperatures up to 22, 23, perhaps even 24 Celsius. There's a change on the way. You can see heavy showers lurking out to the west. They're going to move in Sunday night, and they'll still be with us on Monday morning. This is something we're keeping an eye on because potentially there could be some disruption from heavy thundery downpours. But in the meantime, some sunshine over the weekend, Sally.
Great stuff. Thanks very much. Hope Webb will be here with your late news around 10:30 tonight. But until then, from everyone in the team, do enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.